And my guest with me here in the studio is the General Secretary of the FDA Union, and that's Dave Penman. Hi, Dave. It's
good morning.
To see you. Thanks for joining us. What have you heard?
Well, what's quite clear is there are credible complaints from a number of government departments about Dominic Raab, just like there were credible complaints about Gavin Williamson before it. And what's quite clear is that civil servants do not have confidence in the current process for raising complaints against ministers. The only way they can raise a complaint is through the ministerial code, which requires not only the Prime Minister to consent to an investigation taking place, but the Prime Minister is the ultimate arbiter on that complaint as well. And as we saw with the Priti Patel complaint, despite evidence of bullying, he refused to acknowledge that she'd breached the ministerial code. So there's no real way that civil servants feel they can raise complaints, which is why this is the sort of situation we're facing with speculations coming out into the public rather than being dealt with through an effective complaints process.
Let's go back to that, but let me just ask you in a bit more detail, what sort of complaints have you heard about? Because the letter that you wrote to the Prime Minister, you didn't even name Dominic Raab, did you?
No, because it's not just about Dominic Raab. We've had complaints raised with us about a number of ministers over many years. This is about a system that's not effective in dealing with bullying by ministers. As we saw in Parliament, where you have a system that people don't have confidence in, they simply will not raise formal complaints. So when Number 10 say there are no formal complaints being raised, they're right, but that doesn't mean that concerns aren't being raised by civil servants. And even the Permanent Secretary in his government department has admitted that his behaviour was tantamount to bullying. So we've got a broken system just now. So rather than concentrating on Dominic Raab or Gavin Williamson, we want the Prime Minister to reform the entire system for dealing with complaints against ministers.
As I said, I do want to come on to that, but tell me about specific complaints that you've heard about Dominic Raab.
I don't want to get into that because it's not the forum for it. Our whole point is what we shouldn't be doing. It's not fair to Dominic Raab and it's not fair to civil servants.
But it's fair to the public if we've got people who are allegedly bullying in positions of high office. They're public servants. We should know about it.
Well, we should know, and ministers should have an effective way to either have their name cleared or for those investigations to be concluded and to face the consequences if they've been bullying. What we don't think is appropriate is that accusations are bandied about in the media, that's the only way that essentially civil servants can raise these now because the internal process isn't working.
No, I understand that, and that's why I'm pushing you on it, if I may, please, Mr Penman, because the Prime Minister disagrees with you. He says that there is no evidence that there's been bullying.
No, he doesn't. He says there's no formal complaints, and that's the point. People have no confidence in raising a formal complaint. A formal complaint would require the Prime Minister to consent to investigation, and there isn't even anyone just now who could conduct that investigation. Since June, we haven't had an independent advisor on ministers' interests. The Cabinet Secretary's made clear civil servants can't investigate ministers, so there isn't even anyone to investigate a complaint, whether that was about Dominic Raab or whether that was a new complaint about another minister. This is not a system that's fit for purpose.
So why don't your members make a formal complaint?
Well, we saw what happened when they raised a formal complaint. You know, when complaints were raised about Priti Patel, the Prime Minister sat on that report for 6 months. And then...
Different Prime Minister, of course.
It is a different Prime Minister. And then, despite the evidence that she had bullied civil servants, the Prime Minister refused to accept that, refused to say that she'd...
Well, this Prime Minister hasn't done that, and he has acted quickly. Once there was a formal complaint about Gavin Williamson, he acted quickly, and he's not there.
That's all good and well, but he still hasn't done so. So we're in a situation where the only way that a complaint could be raised about Gavin Williamson or Dominic Raab is if the Prime Minister agrees. The Prime Minister at this point in time could conduct and initiate an investigation into Dominic Raab to clear his name. He isn't doing so. Instead of that, we have this endless speculation about ministers, and civil servants have no confidence in the current process. It shouldn't be up to the whim of a Prime Minister about whether to support his political allies on whether an investigation is conducted into bullying and harassment amongst ministers.
You're not suggesting, though, that this Prime Minister, if he heard a formal complaint about bullying, would say, no, he's my mate, so I'm not listening?
I don't know, but that's been the experience in the past of Prime Ministers, inevitably. And
not with this one.
Well, what's the test of Rishi Sunak just now?
Gavin Williamson.
Gavin Williamson resigned.
No, he was sacked.
Is there an investigation into Gavin Williamson? So his resignation essentially means there won't be an investigation. So we actually have an independent process in Parliament that even though people resign and leave Parliament, it still concludes, it still brings a conclusion and a potential punishment. And when it comes to ministers, if they resign, they get off essentially scot-free and they're free to come back into Cabinet at a later date. The whole system just doesn't work when it comes to protecting civil servants from the conduct of ministers. It's only a few ministers. It's not the entire Cabinet. It's not the majority. But they're all now tainted by this because no one has confidence in the system. And even if, as we saw with the Priti Patel affair, that there's a conclusion from it, people don't actually believe it.
As I said, that was a different Prime Minister, a different era. Rishi Sunak says that he's wiping the slate clean. Are there other ministers or cabinet ministers that your members feel have behaved inappropriately toward them, serving ministers?
There are, yes. We've had...
How many?
I don't want to go into speculation of numbers or complaints.
It's not speculation. I mean, I'm just asking you how many.
No, because
so you must know.
People raise concerns with us. They haven't been investigated. That's only one side of a story. So I'm not going to come here and start banging about numbers or accusations as a result. The whole point about this is we don't have a process for dealing with this effectively. It's not fair on ministers and it's not fair on civil servants. That the only way that these sorts of accusations end up coming out is speculation in the press.
So, just to be clear, your members are telling you, or not potentially you directly, but your colleagues who are coming to you to say that there are several other ministers in Rishi Sunak's government who have behaved inappropriately towards them.
Yes.
But you can't tell me how many.
I'm not going to go into speculating how many. That's probably...
And can you give me an idea of what sort of behaviour we're talking about? Is it bullying?
Yeah, most of what comes to us is inappropriate behaviour in terms of ministers, whether it's losing their temper, shouting, getting frustrated. Government's a tough place to work for civil servants and ministers. They know that. But at times, that behaviour can then verge into what people would characterise as bullying. And just like any other workplace, that needs an effective mechanism to address it, and that's not what we have. But this is a constant.
And so as a result, your members are coming to you because they feel they can't do anything else?
Yeah, because they have no confidence.
And what impact is it having on them?
Well, it blights careers. People end up leaving the job or leaving the post that they're in. If you imagine you're a civil servant, to work with ministers, to work at the heart of government, it's actually the pinnacle of your career. That's what you've wanted to do. You want to work in public service and work close with ministers and help deliver the government's agenda. So for those who have to leave because that's the only choice that they've got, they either put up with that behaviour or they leave, it's hugely damaging to their careers and, of course, to their lives, because bullying can have a huge impact in people's lives.
And how do you help them? How do you support them through that?
Well, we can support them in terms of giving them advice about how to deal with it, whether that's a formal complaint, informally, broker, getting another job, moving outside of the area. That's sometimes the only option. You know, that's the difficulty, because it's more difficult to move a minister than it is to move a civil servant. Sometimes that's just what happens and people recognise it, but it can be hugely damaging to individuals.
Of course, I completely get that. But just to clarify, it's not just Dominic Raab that there are issues with, which is why you've not named names in the letter that you've written to the Prime Minister. There are other high-profile ministers who, in your opinion, as a union leader, are bullying civil servants, and the Prime Minister is doing nothing about it.
What I'm saying is that there are concerns raised about a number of ministers. That's essentially a constant in government. It's not just about this government, it's every government. You know, there are dozens of ministers in stressful situations, and so at any point in time you're inevitably going to have a situation where there are concerns raised about the conduct of ministers. That's why what we're saying is this isn't just about Dominic Raab, it's not just about Gavin Williamson, it's about the entire system that deals with this. And if you don't have an effective system for dealing with that sort of behaviour, it almost encourages it.
And to what extent do you have some sympathy for those government ministers who were in the middle of a war in Europe? We've got a cost of living crisis, there's been turmoil over the last 6 months or so, and they are also up against it.
Absolutely, as are the civil servants that support them. Loyally and serve government. I mean, as I say, civil servants who work closely with ministers are not shrinking violets. They know they've been working at the heart of government. They have to deal with all of the crises that ministers have to deal with as well. But they expect to be treated with dignity and respect. And they expect that if ministers don't do that, there would be an effective system for dealing with it.
Good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank
Much
you.
appreciated. Thank you.